I believe Urouge is waiting for Luffy in the heaven realm of Elbaf. I also believe he will thank Luffy for defeating Enel once he finds out. Oda is starting a new era in the One Piece story by having two of the four Yonko fall in Big Mom and Kaido, and having the second worst generation replacee when it comes to Monkey D. Luffy replacing, of course, one of the Yonko. Earlier, Blackbeard replaced Whitebeard. We also know Eustace Kid and Law share the same bounty as Yonko Luffy with 3 billion berries, and some might say they are done because of Shanks and Blackbeard, but don't forget, Blackbeard is a part of the new era. He's part of the worst generation, so Blackbeard taking out Law was just new era versus new era, even though his age would say otherwise and put him in the same era as Shanks, Buggy, Mihawk, Crocodile, that great pirate era. Speaking of all these guys, they're all part of the Yonko system, regardless if they're the captain or the underling. All I'm trying to say is Urouge is more special than we think, and I thought today would be the perfect time I do a deep dive on the Mad Monk. Now, the worst generation are made up of 11 supernovas, and of course, Blackbeard. Following, of course, the time skip, we heard a lot about them and eventually saw them throughout the story. Law and Punk Hazard and Dressrosa and Zoe, Capone and Whole Cake Island, X-Drake, Hawkins, Apu, Eustace Kid, and Killer all in Wano, having some role in that Onigashima raid. With, of course, the rooftop literally being the worst generation versus Yonko. Like, when it comes to when One Piece is finished, we're gonna know that the rooftop was literally the worst generation versus the Yonko. That's the battle. And of course, no, Blackbeard made him more impactful because Blackbeard carries the worst generation. He was the first generation to become a Yonko. Like, when Luffy, Law, Kid were all rising the ranks, Blackbeard already did it, yo. He already did it right before the time skip when he did his plan of waiting 20 years on Whitebeard's ship, and then of course getting the Yami Yami no Mi, getting the Gurgur no Mi, and taking Whitebeard's territory and becoming the Yonko, even taking down Marco the Phoenix and the remnants of the Whitebeard pirates. So he was leading the worst generation. But now Luffy's coming into the Yonko system saying, yo, wait, hold up right there. And of course Law and Kid were getting close until their, of course, fire was burnt out. And finally Egghead Island had Bonnie. And Bonnie was more of a unique situation because Bonnie, of all the worst generations, seemingly has a story that has nothing to do with trying to get the One Piece or becoming the Pirate King or any pirate schemes. It looks like Bonnie is just a child who was forced into the pirate life because of Kuma and her family situation, and that's crazy sad flashback we got on Egghead Island. And Bonnie is now currently with us on Elbaf. Bonnie didn't just go from Egghead Island, she went with us to Elbaf, having the same lineage, and I want to say lineage, but same traveling when it comes to worst generation like Law did. Law was with us in Punk Hazard, then he came to us with Dressrosa, then he came to us with Zoe. It looks like Bonnie's doing the same thing with Egghead Island, Elbaf, and probably the final arc. Bonnie might be able to come to Laugh-Tale, which would be insane because we know Bonnie has strong ties to, of course, the sun god Nika, which of course is Monkey D. Luffy in this One Piece story. Now, of course, of all the worst generation I just mentioned, there's only one I'm missing, and that's Mad Monk Urouge, who's definitely been mentioned throughout the time skip, but definitely has been saved by Oda. Oda's saving this character for a reason. And you have to understand, the worst generation were not even supposed to be a thing. Oda made them randomly. Oda said he only had characters of Luffy, Zoro, Blackbeard, and Eustace Kid when it comes to characters he had from the beginning that were going to be in the story. So the fact that Oda made all these other worst generations on the spot during Sabaody and gave them all important roles, we can only expect Urouge to have a very important role when it comes to the main story. And it's like Oda's trying to do that. Oda's trying to bring these characters to have them involved in the main story, so when it's all said and done, Luffy could have his rivals of his era. Not just the Yonko and Big Mom Kaido, and of course Blackbeard and Shanks. No. Also guys who are also trying to reach that level of next level when it comes to the worst generation. Now, the first time we ever see Urouge, it's very interesting because he is the only supernova that's not going against a captain but going against a vice captain and Killer. And some could say this is the hype up Killer and saying that he, just like Zoro, is one of the two vice captains who are actually a part of the supernovas, bounties over 100 million, showing how great they are as vice captains. But some would say that Killer was actually spared after we learned what happened post time skip with Urouge's character, which I'll talk about a bit later. All in all, X-Drake stopped this battle, and I do want to say this. Urouge was definitely not taking Killer seriously. He was actually looking down on the guy. But Killer in his own right is very powerful. We've seen that in Wano. But I gotta say, Urouge, there's something going on with that character, and he wasn't even going all out, because we actually seen him actually use his Delphin ability later on in this arc. Yep, that's right. We've seen Urouge use his Delphin ability against the Pasha Fista, and this is where we actually see Urouge's power and how unique it is. It has to do with karma, and it seemingly looks like a paramecia, though it could be it could be a mythical zone. Who knows what could it be? But it's definitely mystical. And I definitely gotta say, when he was able to bounce back against the Pasha Fista and take it out with one punch, well, not really take it out, but pretty much do a pretty sizable punch with all that karmic power. And then of course we've seen Kizaru Lightspeed kick him into all those buildings. I say this, Urouge got back up and wasn't captured, so I'll give him that, and he was still smiling, so I gotta give respect to respect. But at the end of the day, Kizaru's an admiral, Urouge is a supernova rookie. It wasn't a complete shock that he got obliterated at the end of this arc. During the Marineford War, Oda would have these supernova rookies really react to what's going on in this war. And I feel like one of the more interesting reactions was, of course, Urouge, because we see Capone like, oh, Whitebeard never saw his comrades, that's why he's a legend, and like just seeing the reactions of Bonnie and everything. But we see Urouge, and all he says is "let's go," and he seems to be happy. In my opinion, it seemed like Urouge knew something was going on that the supernovas didn't. It goes to what I actually believe Urouge's role in the story is, and some might actually be shocked at what I'm about to say. Yes, that's right. After Marineford, Oda does the same thing of having the supernova pirates react, and Urouge is the only supernova to key in on what actually is going down in Marineford and what threat actually became a big deal, and that was Blackbeard. He says Blackbeard was the key. Make no mistake, he is going to become the Eye of the Storm. The confidence he has in Marshall DT, just like he has some sort of relationship with him, it's like he knows of Blackbeard. And you have to understand, we don't really get the supernova's journey highlighted throughout pre-time skip. We just know they all met up on Sabaody. But Blackbeard was definitely going through the seas. We saw him on Drum Kingdom. We saw him interact with Ace. We saw him interact with Luffy, for goodness sake, and Jaya. So they're trying to tell me that Blackbeard couldn't have ran into at least one of the supernovas. Maybe the one that's highlighting him after the war in Urouge. Yes, you guys all see where I'm going with this. Urouge recognizes Teach, and I'll be honest with you, he's the only worst generation to do it. So I definitely gotta say and single him out. Like, Kid does it, but Kid does it with Big Mom, Kaido, and like just talking about the new era in general. Kid's just trying to become a GOAT. Urouge does it with more, how to say this, like purpose. And Urouge is not a young buck, guys. He's around Blackbeard's age if you look at his actual age. Now, of course, the next time we actually see the Mad Monk Urouge in the story is, of course, him about to embark on this certain island, and this island is raining down lightning thunder, and he's not smiling. It's one of the few times in the story Urouge is not smiling. And you guys all know I have that legendary theory of Urouge not smiling because it has to do with Enel, and I really talked about it years ago. But I also believe the fact that Oda made him go to that island, a specific island that had Roger pirates on. The Roger pirates went to this lightning island, and Luffy was meant to go to this lightning island, but actually avoided it narrowly. So I personally believe this island has something distinct about it, and if Oda had Roger go to it, but not Luffy, who could explain something about this island? It would have to be, in my personal opinion, it would have to be Mad Monk Urouge. I think Mad Monk Urouge is going to talk about this certain lightning island to Luffy, and I wouldn't be surprised if Mad Monk Urouge actually was thugging it out in this island. When I say thugging it out, I mean literally powering through the lightning and having that karmic power for when it's all said and done, when he needs it. And you have to understand, how could Urouge do it? Well, maybe because of his past. We know he has to do with Enel and the Burka, and how Burka was destroyed, and he has those Burka wings. It all is connected, guys. So yeah, I think this island is more unique and special than a lot of people think. Now, of course, the next time we see Urouge is actually after the time skip, and he's suffering from his wounds on this remote cloud island. so no one can bother him. And his crew's running to him saying, hey guys, there's a guy there, which we will later see would be Kaido, the strongest creature alive, a Yonko. Like Oda just casually having Urouge and Kaido in the same vicinity, the same area, which is just mind-boggling to me. But this island, this remote cloud island, it makes me think Oda really wants us to connect Urouge to these Sky Islands. He literally has this Skypian wings. He's from Burka from those wings. We know Enel destroyed that island and took his priest and went all the way to, of course, Skypiea. And we all know that he had his priest. And Urouge is literally, they call him priest. They call him priest, his crew. There's so many connections here, so I don't have to go and yap about this, guys. And during Kaido's introduction, Oda actually makes it his purpose to have Urouge there in one of the most monumental moments in the One Piece story. The Versus Emperor saga is all about Kaido being that main villain. So to have Kaido's epic introduction be connected with Mad Monk Urouge is not no small player. He's a big deal. And of course, I'm obviously not doing that share the Urouge meme. I mean, he's actually a big deal. He's on a ruined Sky Island balloon terminal that has balloons lifting up these Sky Islands. So it's not like one of those natural Sky Islands that Urouge is from and that we saw Enel on Skypiea. And we also know that it's a ruined Sky Island. So Enel could have definitely damaged the Sky Island in the past. You know, Enel didn't just go to Skypiea. He was traveling throughout Sky Islands in the past. And of course, Urouge questioning Kaido with no fear of him jumping 30,000 feet in the air and onto the ground. And Urouge even says, I won't stop him if he's serious, and even does a prayer for Kaido as he falls. I believe Urouge's character is like King when it comes to Sanganika, and he will go with Blackbeard instead of Luffy, and especially not Loki. When it comes to Loki and Urouge is going to have that moment of the Sanganika. I think Urouge definitely plays a part in the Void Century as well. Yes, his people. I'm telling you guys right now, Urouge is not just no regular character. It's the reason why Oda had him with wings. After we went to Skypiea, we see this character with wings. Urouge is a Void Century-esque character. That's why we saw in Enel's cover story. We see the wings, and we see all those hieroglyphics. Oda is definitely going to be doing some trippy stuff with this character. Now, of course, the next time we see Urouge is where we really have to put some respect on his name. Urouge is said to be one of Big Mom's top commanders. We know Big Mom has sweet generals, sweet commanders, and she has a top 4. And one of her 4th sweet commander in Snack was defeated. This is a big deal to defeat a top young commander at this time in the story when Luffy was literally struggling with the young commanders. At this time, he wasn't like the Luffy we've seen recently in Gear 5th and Egghead Island and whatnot. No, Luffy was struggling with top young commanders. And if you think about it, Doflamingo is kind of like a top young commander because he's the Joker to Kaido's crew in a sense when it comes to King, Queen, and Jack and Joker. I feel like Doflamingo was kind of like just a 4th commander in my opinion. So to see Luffy was struggling against Doflamingo at this time too. So Urouge, to see him actually, before Luffy even defeated Doflamingo, he defeated a sweet commander, was a big deal. Regardless of how, in hindsight, people are like, okay, now it's not a big deal. No, at the time, it was a big deal, guys. And of course, he lost the Cracker right after, and that's where he got his wounds. But still, even Brule, Oda wanted to show us how hype Urouge was and how strong he was. Even Brule was like, yeah, all the other guys, Kid, Apu, Capone, yeah, they're nothing. Urouge is the only one who actually did damage. Now, of course, this was definitely, what you would call it, a smear campaign on Kid as well, because we also looked at like, yo, Urouge and not Kid. And Kid kind of cleared it up during the prison of Udon, saying, I actually injured one of the 3 commanders, and I actually stole the road poneglyph. So it definitely shows that Kid is actually not a scrub. He's actually doing what Urouge did as well. Though Urouge defeated Sweet Commander, it looks like Kid actually only injured one and then took the rope poneglyph and left. Which I'm thinking either has to be either Cracker, Smoothie. It's definitely not Katakuri. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Now, of course, Oda has talked about Urouge outside the story, and I feel like Oda's gonna do more of that sooner than later because Oda's been doing that in general as the story in the final saga continues. But Urouge's hobby is drinking, lovemaking, and traveling. Sounds like he could share a lot of similarity qualities to Tej, who loves to drink and loves to travel, and we've seen with a lot of girls, and even told Bonnie, you can't come to my crew, but you can definitely be my girl, which of course was a certified lover boy, certified moment when it comes to Blackbeard, but he didn't know, so I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt because of Blondie's Delphin ability, which is just, yeah, it's Oda, you definitely caused a lot of mess with that one. Oda even said that Urouge went out to sea to sharpen his weapon, which of course Oda calls a pencil. But now that makes me think, is there something special about his weapon? Maybe it has to do with the Void's entry, and maybe it has some mythological meaning to it. Maybe this weapon has something to do with Luffy gaining a weapon in Elbaf. I think the only next step for Luffy to become even more stronger and more incredible if he gets a weapon that of course goes down to what Joy Boy maybe used, and maybe the original Sanganika. Like there's so many things Oda can do with Luffy's power and ability. I think Urouge can definitely help Luffy in this sense. Now of course when it comes to Urouge, he's said to be from India if he was in the real world, and he said his actual job, he wasn't a pirate, was to be a cabaret club manager. So we see Urouge, we all know those cabaret club managers. Sounds like a sleazy job, but also the fact that he's from India, we also see the Indian ties. His animal that he represents will be an elephant. A lot of interesting stuff here. Of course, if the pirate he actually represents is a 16th century Arab pirate named Barbosa, the Barbosa brothers, Urouge. That's who, of course, Urouge represents. It says that Europe transformed that name into Barbosa, which means Redbeard in Italian, so there's definitely connections to Blackbeard just off of that. He also became known as Baba Aru, which is Father Aru, when he transported large numbers of Moroccan, Muslim, and Jewish refugees from Spain to North Africa, which, in my opinion, connects Urouge to Blackbeard and also the slaves of the Celestial Dragons. Let me explain how Urouge could have a fish tiger role when it's all said and done from his real life connections in the pirate world. You see how Blackbeard got Aokiji to join his crew by having an alignment of interest? I believe that is, of course, the same way he got Urouge when it comes to toppling the world government and freeing the slaves. We know Urouge, that Blackbeard definitely didn't have a great childhood, so Urouge could definitely, share that in common when it comes to past struggles. And Urouge definitely seen the blue sea for what it was. But Luffy is the true one that will help Urouge and Aokiji's goal, in my opinion. I feel like Aokiji and Urouge joining Blackbeard, they're soon going to realize during this Luffy-Blackbeard war that Luffy is what they actually want to do when it comes to aligning their interests. And they just don't know it yet. And of course, Urouge's crew name is the Fallen Monk Pirates. So I feel like this is Oda trying to show us that Urouge had a great story, a great idea, a great purpose, and he fell from his purpose and got lost in the sauce. Same way Aokiji fell from his purpose with the Marines and got lost in the sauce of Blackbeard. But I feel like just how you fall, it's how you get back up. And the Get Back Pirates, when it comes to Urouge, he can get back up and help out Luffy when it's all said and done. Yes, I don't think Urouge is a villain. I think he will have villainous traits, but I think he can definitely, when it comes to karma, what good happens, what good you do, you get the good return. What bad you do, you get the bad return. So I think Urouge, he's gonna do this Karmic thing of, yes, I'm doing bad, and he's gonna realize nothing good is going on. But when he sees Luffy and how good he is, even though he's a pirate, Luffy doesn't want to be a hero, Urouge would definitely see this guy is the true Sanganika, and I think there's definitely ties there. So I'm a fan of this Urouge storyline. I think Heaven Realm and Elbaf is where Urouge comes out to play, and I'm excited, guys. It's gonna be fun.